So my story is essentially that. I do have no first-hand experience with the ET effort, except the fact that I know all of these research people that you'll hear from today, and those some who are not here today, who have spent a long amount of their lives and time doing research into the alien visitation, UFO crashes, and so forth. And I urge that those who are doubtful read the books, read the lore, and start to understand what has really been going on, because there is no doubt we are being visited. And as a person who is a part of the first generation of being a spacefarer of our civilization and having gone to the moon, and realizing that I do, and many of us do now, that have seen the Hubble's pictures from space, the universe that we live in is much more wondrous, exciting, complex, and far-reaching than we were ever able to know up to this point in time. And the fact we have wondered, were we alone in the universe forever? Only in our period do we really have evidence, no, we're not alone. We are just one planet with intelligent life on it.
All right, now, would any of the media like to ask either of these gentlemen a question at this point? Any of the reporters?
Yeah. Can you tell us, Dr. Mitchell, exactly what the locals of Roswell told you, if you could remember specifically?
On the mic.
Yeah.
Yes, it was that the Roswell event was an alien craft, that it was not of this planet. That's the essence. What they really told me was their particular, each one had some particular part of it, like a sheriff's deputy was controlling traffic but heard from what the other people what was going on. The family of the undertaker told about the small coffins that were created for the alien bodies. And my Air Force family friend said yes, he had heard the same thing from Major Brazel. And each one of them just told what their portion of the activity was all about. So putting it all together, the sum total was, yes, it was an alien spacecraft.
Thank you.
And the question?
Just had another question about
Sure.
Fellow astronauts talking to you about seeing space, UFOs in space.
No, I have talked to all of the astronauts up through the Apollo program. And the only ones that have had UFO experience were in their Air Force careers, where were vectored to chase a UFO, never quite made it, couldn't quite get them in their sights or whatever. And that was Deke Slayton, and Gordon Cooper had his experience that's been well recited about seeing one land at Edwards Air Force Base, seeing the pictures of it, and suddenly the pictures disappeared into the vaults of Washington and never returned. But the military people that had UFO experience were in their Air Force careers before the astronaut program. And of course, being a military and a Navy pilot myself, the stories among airline pilots and other pilots is they're just all over the places. And we're all told, shut up about it. I never chased one myself, but all my friends that did, where it was all the same thing, don't talk about it.
Before Gordon Cooper entered the space program, he had his own encounter with a different type of space traveler. While flying over Central Europe, his fighter squadron came upon a formation of UFOs.
There were a number of extraterrestrial vehicles out there cruising around, flying the same kind of formation we fly in our fighters. They didn't have wings, they were saucer-shaped, and we never could get as high or as fast as they were, so to really positively identify them, but they were metallic looking and saucer in shape. And they could do a few maneuvers that we couldn't do in an airplane, like just horizontally displace themselves rapidly, be flying along and just move over rapidly.
Gordon Cooper's UFO sighting wasn't his only close encounter. In 1958, he was working as a project manager at Edwards Air Force Base in California.
I had a film crew working for me on a project I was doing to put a precision landing system in on the edge of the dry lake bed. And they were filming the various stages of the installation. And a small saucer apparently flew overhead and put down some landing gear and landed out on the dry lake bed, only about 50 yards out. And these were old pro cameramen who were used to flying in all kinds of vehicles to take all kinds of pictures. And so they picked up their cameras and started over toward it and get some close-ups. And with that, it lifted up, put the gear back in, and at a very high rate of speed disappeared. So they came in to tell me what happened. I told them to get over to the lab and develop the film immediately. And I would go and look in the book, regulation book, and see what you're supposed to do, who you have to call to report these kind of incidents, which I did. And by the time they got back with the film, there was a higher and higher and higher ranked man preceding the last one, assuring me that I had to get those negatives into a pouch, and that they had made arrangements already to get our commanding general's airplane reserved and take the films to Washington.
In an effort to organize open investigations of UFO sightings, Gordon Cooper wrote a letter to the United Nations in 1976, appealing for assistance. His letter stated, "These are extraterrestrial vehicles visiting from other planets."
And it was presented to the council and certainly made a lot of people aware of a number of things that perhaps they had not been aware of before, so maybe it opened a few eyes. This universe is limitless and tremendous big universe, and we're kind of vain to think that we're the only ones that exist here.
Do you have any idea where the S4B is with respect to us? Stand by.
The crew required information on the current position of the S4B, the final stage of the rocket which had been jettisoned away 2 days earlier. This short message hid an extraordinary turn of events. Apollo 11 wasn't alone in space.
There was something out there that was close enough to be observed, and what could it be?
Traveling alongside Apollo 11 was a mysterious object like this one, filmed on a later mission. If it wasn't part of their own rocket, it could only be one thing: a UFO.
Mike decided he thought he could see it in the telescope, and he was able to do that. And when it was in one position, that it had a series of ellipses. But when you made it real sharp, it was sort of L-shaped. That didn't tell us very much.
NASA knew very little about the object reported by the Apollo 11 crew. It was obviously an unidentified flying object, but such objects were not uncommon, and the history of even Earth orbit space flights going back over the previous years indicated that several crews saw objects.
Despite having a clear view of the UFO, the crew were wary of reporting it to Mission Control.
Now, obviously, the three of us were not going to blurt out, "Hey, Houston, we got something moving alongside of us, and we don't know what it is. You know, can you tell us what it is?" We weren't about to do that, because we know that those transmissions would be heard by all sorts of people, and who knows what somebody would have demanded that we turn back because of aliens or whatever the reason is. So we didn't do that, but we did decide we just cautiously ask Houston, how far away was the S4B?
Unaware of the drama unfolding in space, Mission Control radioed the position back to Apollo 11.
Apollo 11, Houston, the S4B is about 6,000 nautical miles from you now, over.
And a few moments later, they came back and said something like it was 6,000 miles away because of the maneuver. So we really didn't think we were looking at something that far away. So we decided that after a while of watching it, it was time to go to sleep and not to talk about it anymore until we came back and debriefing.
To this day, whatever it was that the crew saw has never been positively identified or officially acknowledged.
There were a lot of people within the program who went off later and became convinced that UFOs existed. and that led to some concern on NASA's part, where they got the agreement of the crew never to publicly talk about these things for fear of ridicule.
Followed by question and answer. At this time, I'd like to introduce the Apollo 11 crew, astronauts Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Edwin Aldrin. Neil?
It was our pleasure to have participated in one great adventure. It's an adventure that took place not just in the month of July, but rather one that took place in the last decade. We all here and the people listening in today had the opportunity to share that adventure over its developing and unfolding in the past months and years. It's our privilege today to share with you some of the details of that final month of July that was certainly the highlight for the three of us of that decade. We're going to divert a little bit from the format of past press conferences and talk about the things that interested us most, in particular the things that occurred on and about the moon. We will use a number of films and slides which most of you have already seen, and with the intent of pointing out some of the things that we observed on the spot which may not be obvious to those of you who are looking at them here from the surface of Earth. The flight, as you know, started promptly. And I think that was characteristic of all the events of the flight. The Saturn gave us one magnificent ride, both into Earth orbit and on a trajectory to the moon. Our memory of that actually differs little from the reports that you have all heard from those previous Saturn V flights, and the previous flights served us well in preparation for this flight in the boost as well as the subsequent phases. We would like to skip directly to the translunar coast phase, and
I myself am a worker in one of the underground bases located near Groom Lake. I have done my work there for the past 8 years, and within the next coming months will be discharged. Now, what I'm going to tell you, you may want to take with a grain of salt, but I assure you, everything that I am about to say is truth, is fact. And whether you know it or believe it or not, everything that I will tell you is common knowledge within the Black Ops community at the most highest and secretive levels. What we do here is research, analyze, and investigate the extraterrestrial presence within our solar system and other dimensions. And what I'm going to tell you today is the truth about what is going on The presence of alien beings and the technology does exist. It is real as you or me, and it's a whole lot more out there than even the most diehard believers could possibly fathom. The truth is that we, and by we I mean this planet and the people of this planet, are in essence blind to what is really going on in the cosmos and interstellar space. What people call aliens, we call IBs, or in layman's terms, interdimensional beings. Now, the planet that we know of as Mars was at one time inhabited, but again, at one time, was wiped out by the people who inhabited the planet, which were much more technologically advanced than we are, which we discovered by testing and analyzing the chemical residue found from the blasts around the planet, as well as artifacts that we've also discovered on the planet, including the infamous glass tubes seen in the few of the publicly made photographs from NASA. Now, these are not glass structures, but a glass-like material that is about 1,000 times stronger than any material or steel that we have on our own planet. These tubes were used as a means of travel underground and above ground by the people who inhabited this planet. It is thought from our research that there are still an ET presence inhabiting Mars, but again, this is as far as I will go, and that I was briefed on regarding that matter. Now, I'm not trying to be completely vague, but I am trying to give you a picture of what is going on out there that doesn't completely put me in more danger than I am already in just by revealing the few things that I have. One of the last things that I will reveal, and that is definitely a fact, and that I have been briefed on, and that many other people involved with the Black Op community have been briefed on, and that is our own moon, which does in fact have alien bases on it, and also has bases from our own government. Now, there is an ET presence, which is primarily located on the dark side of the moon. The Apollo program was in all actuality a reconnaissance mission, so that we could research what was exactly there and who. You will notice that many of the photos from the Apollo missions have airbrushed out buildings and bases, and this is the truth of the matter. About half of the video that you will see that is documented from the Apollo missions was in fact shot here on Earth at Area 51. In fact, if you look at satellite imagery, you can actually see what's left of a crater field created at Area 51 that was used in the filming. Now, the truth is that most of the footage from the moon was simply cluttered with bases, with alien buildings, and from what one astronaut said, and I'm quoting, what were a constant presence of alien vehicles flying over the surface, cluttering up the footage. So again, they showed the American people what they could and recreated the rest here on Earth that they couldn't show. From what we know, the dark side of the moon is where most of the alien presence is located. It's a more primitive alien race from what we can see, and our research tells us. It's more primitive than the alien beings you would see on higher dimensions, but still thousands, if not millions of years ahead of us. Now, we have our own bases, which are primarily located in or near the Sea of Tranquility, which is the site of Apollo 11, and also one base that I know of located near the crater Sabine D. To this day, we are still sending secret missions to and from the moon. However, I do not know the complete details of what we are doing there. The alien beings demanded that if the world governments did not reveal this information to the world, to the public, that the beings would reveal it themselves. They would reveal themselves, and they would do this by appearing in large metropolitan cities all over the world in large fleets of ships and discs. So it would be impossible for anyone to deny the fact that they existed. They would show themselves all over the world because, according to the Greys, the world is on it's basically on the brink of entering a new age and a new dimension and a new state of being. We are getting smarter, we're growing as a race, we're growing as a planet, and it's time for the planet as a whole to take the next step into basically what we call a Type 1 planet. Right now we're a Type 0 planet, but we are on the brink of becoming a Type 1 planet, and according to the Greys, for the world to make that transition, we as mankind would need and basically have a right to know that there is life and that these beings are visiting us. They specifically told the world governments that they needed to tell the public that there is life out there in the universe and to explain to the public the real origins of mankind, where we truly come from, how we got here, because the true history is a lot different from what they're telling us in the textbooks. What we know right now and the theories that we have, evolution and creationism and all this stuff, it's not correct. Okay? It is not correct. I assure you that the extraterrestrials had a large part in how our planet formed, why we are here, and if the governments of the world do not reveal to the public this information by a set date, which I believe is around 2012 or 2013, then the alien beings will make their presence known with or without the consent of the world governments. However, the alien Greys, as well as others, although I can't confirm it, I can confirm that the alien Greys have continued to take people and animals and plants from the earth in order to probe and research them. So they have continued to do that, and they no longer give any technology to the world governments. I do know that, especially since the world governments broke their agreement. However, we are coming to the brink of true disclosure, because one way or another, whether our governments let us know or it's them who has to let us know, it's going to happen. It's either going to happen with the president coming on the TV and telling the world what the truth is, or it's going to happen by walking outside out of our homes or getting home from work and looking up in the sky and seeing large fleets of crafts sitting overhead in the sky. It's going to happen one way or another. But it did happen. There was a crash. The crash at Roswell was caused due to the gravity conditions on Earth. There was an issue with the anti-gravity technology that the alien disk was using, and there was an issue, and that from what we could tell was the original reason that the disk crashed in the first place. Although they are thousands of years ahead of us, it's not impossible that they also, too, like us, can have issues with their craft and machinery. It very, very rarely happens, but the specific day at Roswell, that was one of the times that they had an issue with their craft, and they went down. And we've kept it a secret for years. We've lied to the American people and have continued to lie to the American people and the world. Every time you see a UFO or a new video come out, the world governments are quickly to deny it or completely fabricate a story to explain it. Either way, they are not telling the truth.